Okay, so imagine this, right? You really want to prove a product,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, there's a problem. You can't talk to the people who actually use it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how are you supposed to make something better if you don't know what people think about it?
Right.
That's what we're going to be looking at today.
Right.
Figuring out users, even when you can't, like, directly ask them things.
Yeah.
We'll be talking all about an article by Vitaly Friedman
Mm-hmm.
called How to Run UX Research Without Access to Users.
Interesting.
So this is for, like, anyone who's ever been stuck trying to figure out their users,
Right.
designers, marketers, or really anyone who's just curious about human behavior. Get ready to think outside the box. We're going to be uncovering how things like sales calls, Google Trends,
Wow.
and even App Store reviews can actually tell you a lot about your users.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's more common than you think to encounter situations where you can't directly engage with users.
Oh, really?
The first step, though, is understanding why that access is restricted. Sometimes we assume these barriers exist when they really don't.
So you're saying there might actually be users we can talk to.
Exactly. It might just be a matter of adjusting our approach.
So like instead of full-blown interviews or surveys, maybe we explore something like anonymized feedback forms.
Right. We often jump to conclusions before exploring all the possibilities.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like we need to be a little more flexible with our research methods. But what if we've tried everything and we really can't get that direct user feedback? What does Friedman suggest we do then?
He emphasizes the importance of connecting with those who are closest to our users.
Oh, I see.
Your colleagues in sales, customer support, even quality assurance, they interact with users every day. They're a goldmine of firsthand insights.
It's like being a detective, gathering clues from those who witnessed the crime of user frustration. But how do we approach these colleagues without, overwhelming them with requests?
Well, it's about framing. Instead of burdening them, we need to build a collaborative feedback loop that benefits everyone. For instance, imagine asking the sales team, what are the top 3 things prospects hesitate about?
Mm,
Or what are the most common reasons deals fall through? Those questions provide incredible insights without adding to their workload.
right. So it's not about demanding information, but fostering a shared understanding. I like that. But what about those tricky B2B situations
Yeah.
where client interaction is carefully guarded or you're dealing with like super niche user groups?
You're right. Those scenarios definitely demand an extra dose of resourcefulness. Luckily, the article suggests several alternative data sources, which we can break down into 3 main categories.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with those categories.
Source, we have digital footprints, things like search logs, support tickets, even internal bug tracking systems like Jira.
Oh, okay.
These can be super revealing in terms of showing you what users are struggling with.
Oh, for sure. I actually once discovered a major usability issue just by browsing through a forum thread. Users were constantly complaining about this confusing checkout process.
Interesting.
And it turned out it was a hidden drop-down menu that was causing all the trouble. Just that one little insight from a random forum led to a redesign
Wow.
and a significant boost in our conversion rates.
You see, valuable insights can be hiding in plain sight. The second category is the voice of the market. So things like App Store reviews, Trustpilot, basically any platform where users publicly share their experiences. Of course, you can't take every single review literally.
Right, because some people just like to complain no matter what.
Exactly. But looking for patterns and recurring themes can be really insightful.
So we're not taking individual opinions as gospel, but looking for those overarching trends.
Precisely. And lastly, we have behavioral data. Tools like Google Trends can be super useful here.
Google Trends, how so?
Well, they can uncover what users are searching for related to your product or industry. Say you notice a spike in searches for a feature your competitor offers, but you don't. That's a pretty clear signal that you might be missing something.
Oh, I see. It's like getting a glimpse into what users actually want, even if they're not explicitly telling us. It's fascinating how we can piece together a picture of user behavior without even talking to them directly.
It really is. But the article does remind us that while these indirect methods can be valuable, they're not perfect substitutes for real direct user research.
Right, of course, I can see how that would be crucial. But convincing stakeholders to invest in dedicated research resources, well, that can be a challenge, to say the least.
You're not wrong. So we need to shift the perspective. Instead of viewing research as a cost, we need to highlight it as an investment. So instead of just focusing on that upfront cost, we need to
Right.
show them the potential ROI, happier customers, better products,
Yeah.
increased revenue. It's about proving the value of UX research.
Yeah, making that business case.
Exactly. And sometimes instead of proposing this huge research project,
Hmm.
it's better to start small.
Oh, interesting.
Even something like committing to interviewing 5 users for just 30 minutes each month
Okay.
can make a big difference.
Right, so it's like a proof of concept. Show them the impact even a little bit of research can have.
Exactly. And don't forget to highlight past successes.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Even if those research efforts were small,
Mm-hmm.
show how those insights led to tangible improvements. It builds trust.
Right, like, hey, look, this small study helped us achieve this great result.
Exactly. And it shows that you know what you're doing.
Right, it builds credibility.
Yeah.
Now, I know the article specifically mentions the challenges of B2B contexts.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I imagine things get even trickier when you have to deal with things like strict NDAs
Oh,
or
absolutely.
those really hard-to-reach niche user groups.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Think about trying to get insights from neurosurgeons or astrophysicists.
Right.
It's not easy.
It's like our detective analogy is back in full force.
Haha. Yeah.
We've got limited evidence,
Mhm.
and those clues might be scattered all over the place.
Right.
So how do we navigate that B2B research maze? What are some strategies?
One approach is to shadow salespeople during their calls with clients.
Oh, interesting.
Pay attention to the language the clients are using, what they hesitate about, the issues they bring up.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's like getting a front row seat to those interactions.
Exactly. And another avenue is to look at internal documentation.
Like what kind of documentation?
Things like training materials, sales scripts, even customer support logs. Analyze the language, the questions being asked,
Okay.
the recurring issues that come up.
So even in those super restricted B2B environments, we can still find ways to gather information about our users.
Precisely. It just requires some creativity.
Yeah.
But, gaining access to this kind of data is only half the battle.
Oh, really? What's the other half?
We need to be mindful of user privacy. Oh, right. Of course. We've been talking about all these workarounds, but we're still dealing with people's data, even if it's indirectly.
Exactly. So we need to make sure we're handling it ethically.
Mm.
Like if you're analyzing support tickets or app store reviews,
Mm-hmm.
are you anonymizing that data properly? Are you removing anything that could identify someone?
Right. So it's not just about finding the information, it's about using it responsibly.
Exactly. And it's not just about data privacy. There's also the risk of bias when you're relying on indirect research.
Mm.
Just because you see a pattern in a few app store reviews
Mm.
doesn't mean that reflects the experience of all your users.
So we need to be careful about making big assumptions based on limited data.
Exactly.
Mm.
We need to acknowledge the limitations of this kind of research and not overstate our findings.
Right. It's all about being realistic. So ultimately, what's the ideal scenario here?
Ideally, we want to do direct user research whenever we can, talking to users face-to-face, observing them, getting that qualitative data, that's really irreplaceable. Right? There's really no substitute for that direct interaction. So it sounds like it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Using these creative methods when necessary, but always striving for that gold standard of direct user research.
Exactly. And it's about being transparent. We need to acknowledge that our indirect research might be limited.
Right.
And there might be some bias there. We're piecing together a puzzle, but we need to be honest about the missing pieces.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, this whole conversation has been so eye-opening. It's amazing how much we can learn about users, even when we can't directly interact with them.
It is pretty cool.
But it also makes me appreciate the value of direct user research even more.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing quite like it. But it is encouraging to know that even when direct research isn't possible,
Yeah,
we still have options.
right. There's always a way. So it's like we're all detectives in a way,
Haha, I like that.
always searching for those clues to help us understand our users.
Exactly. And the best detectives are always learning new techniques.
So we need to be like those detectives, always adding new tools and techniques to their toolkit.
That's a great way to think about it. And speaking of tools and techniques, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners.
Oh, yeah. What creative methods have you used to understand your users when traditional research just wasn't possible?
Have you had any, aha moments from digging through support tickets or, connecting the dots during sales calls?
We really want to hear about it. Share your experiences with us. We might even feature them in a future deep dive.
Definitely. We're all in this together, right? All trying to create better experiences for our users.
Exactly. And that takes all of us being resourceful and collaborative and willing to try new things.
Absolutely.
So next time you hit a user research roadblock, remember what we talked about today.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Get creative. There are always ways to find those user insights.
They're out there just waiting to be discovered.
That's right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into UX research without users.
It was a pleasure being here.
Until next time, happy investigating.